Your wheels are something that are the first and last things people see. Keeping them clean isn't always easy with the proximity to the ground, exposure to the elements, and of course your very own brake dust. In this video, I'll be showing you how I clean, decontaminate, and protect a set with ceramic coating. Stay tuned. Hey there, today I'm working on this set of Wet Sport wheels. You can see that they're kind of dirty. They've been put through their paces. They've been used quite a lot from the owner, and he's asked me to decontaminate them and ceramic coat them today, so let's get started. It is raining just a little bit, so I'm going to be working out of the back of this Passat, and what I'm going to be using to decontaminate it is CarPro Iron X. You don't have to use this. You can use whatever you like that will remove iron and brake dust, rail dust, anything that can get stuck on the wheels. Mostly things that'll change color are the type of cleaners that you want, because that means that it's actually going to be decontaminating and removing all of the stuck-on contaminants. This is a real lifesaver when it comes to that. Also, you may have seen earlier I have a pressure washer set up, as well as I have a large wheel scrubbing brush, and in here I've got a smaller detail brush just to agitate the cleaner. First thing you're going to want to do is spray down the wheels. This is obvious. The reason you're going to want to do this is to get off all the loose dust that you can before you start using a heavy cleaner. So right away we can see that all the top dust was blown off. Then at this point is when we would spray on our Iron X and let it sit for a little while. So here it is. All we're going to do is start from the top. Go all the way around, make sure we get the spokes inside the barrel as well, and just let it sit for about a minute. You're not going to want to inhale a lot of this stuff. I'm wearing a facial protection as well as I'm wearing gloves just to protect my hands. This is not great stuff that you want to be inhaling or constantly touching your skin. Once this has been sitting for a little while, just take your detail brush, agitate the surface a little bit, just so that it reaches in every nook and cranny. Make sure you get behind the brake stem, over here, around the inside, up and down the spokes, inside the lug holes, center of the hub, in between the spokes. Basically, you're just going to want to get touch everything that you can with this, because as you keep moving, the brush will get coated with the wheel cleaner as well. So any places that may have missed getting sprayed are going to be cleaned by this as well. Once you think you've done a good enough job of going in and touching everything is when you would go ahead and flip the wheel around and then get your heavy scrubbing brush and start scrubbing from the inside of the barrel. The inside of the barrel is much dirtier. The owner of these wheels tracks these on his Miata with some pretty aggressive pads. So what we're going to do now is we're going to grab our scrubbing brush. Because this guy, I use a easy detail brush. You could use anything similar and just scrub around the inside of the barrel. The reason why we use this instead of the detail brush for the inside is because typically things are caked on a bit heavier. It's in closer contact with the brake caliper as well as the pads. There's more heat and it's cleaned less often. So at this point I've scrubbed all along the inside of the barrel with the larger brush, and I'm just going to take the smaller detail brush and get in behind the spokes. You can't really reach this area with a large brush just because the end is not really meant to fit into tight spaces. So I'm still going to use this just to agitate the cleaner all around the outsides and the insides here before we spray it off. I think it's had a good amount of time to set now, because while I was going in and agitating the rest of the cleaner on everything else, the part that was already contacting the wheel should have enough time to really work in. So without further ado, I'm going to grab the pressure washer and we'll hopefully see all the dirt blast off. Wow, that's pretty good. There's still a little bit more to go. We'll get closer to that later with a microfiber. But now we're gonna blast off the front of the face. They're almost clean now. I'm going to go in and get the more difficult areas with the brush again and some more Iron X, and we're going to clean the rest of the wheels before we move on to the next step. Some of these wheels had a bit heavier stains on them, so what I've done is I had put another layer of Iron X on, agitated it a bit, and I'm just going to let it sit for a few minutes before spraying it off again. These are particularly difficult stains to get off just because of the aggressive pads, as well as the heat kind of bakes it in. So the longer we let the Iron X sit and do its job, the more of it's going to come off. This stuff is pretty nasty. You really don't want to be inhaling it if possible. And when you rinse it off, really make sure to rinse off as much as possible. I know some of you may have wheels that are more complicated. Some of them may have mesh or lots and lots of spokes, but really just rinse off as much as you can, because if you don't, then when the Iron X hardens, it becomes kind of this weird brown liquid that has some of the iron particles in it, and it'll just dry on the surface of the wheel. You can't really get it off unless you use Iron X again and brush over it. We're just gonna give these guys a spray down because these two are the ones that had a bit heavier stains. That's honestly pretty decent. If all you're after is a clean, you could probably just stick them back on the car now after a quick wipe down dust of any lingering dust. But the owner is a close friend of mine, and he asked me to make it a bit easier to clean for him. So after I'm done cleaning the last one, we're going to move on to the next step, which is installing a coating. What you're going to want to do is grab a microfiber, hopefully one that you don't care about too much, and just give the wheels a wipe down. There's going to be some spots that spraying it with water didn't get off. So what you can do is just give it a wipe. Especially in places like this. And most of the leftover dirt should have been loose enough that it could just be wiped away. So you're going to want to do that across all wheels on both sides, and then we're going to start claying it after that. The back side of the barrel, there are some streaks on there that didn't come off when spraying it, so we're just going to try wiping it. You can see we got most of it off pretty easily. That's not bad. The rest of what's left is pretty corroded. It looks like the clear coat's been peeling a bit, and there are some spots where the dirt and brake dust has just been etched into the finish. There's not a whole lot we could do about that. Luckily, this is on the back side, so it's not going to be seen that much from the front. Now that they've been fully cleaned, what we're going to want to do is first grab some detail clay. I use Griot's Garage. You use whatever you want. It really doesn't matter. Hopefully what you'll have inside is a big lump of clay. I reuse mine, but I won't be reusing it anymore after this. Because the wheels are pretty dirty, you're not going to want to put it on your paint again after this. So I've got this small chunk here. I'm going to be using it on the wheels today, and that's it. This is going to be garbage after today. I've used it on a couple cars now. It's starting to get a little full, starting to change color a bit. Don't reuse this anymore after the wheels. I can't stress this enough. So first thing we're going to do is lubricate the area a little bit. Grab our clay, and really it's just as simple as rubbing it in. Eventually the clay will pick up enough moisture, it'll start to flatten a bit, and you could fold it around, break it up into multiple pieces, fold in the chunks, and when you're done with it after this, you're going to want to throw it away. Don't reuse it on anything else. So if we go ahead and rub our hands on the surface now, it still makes a sound just because it's on metal, but it's much smoother. I'm going to go around and do the rest of this wheel now. Just as a quick note, if you want to look at this piece of clay, this is just after a few passes of the inside of the barrel. This is why you don't really want to be using it on your paint again after this. All of this stuff that gets embedded in the clay basically will get rubbed on the paint. Compared to paint, clay is cheap. So use it. If you need to throw it away, get new ones. It's pretty cheap for a tub. For this one, it was about 25 bucks Canadian. I know it's cheaper if you're in the States. to get your car repainted is going to be at least like 200 times that. So really use this stuff as you need it and just toss it away after. I'm just going to be very careful with the clay. I'm only going to go around the spokes and then the outer rim here. Just around the outer rim at the edges and not so much near the blue or the white parts, just because I don't want to be pulling off more sticker than necessary. So one tip that I have to give when cleaning wheels is to use gravity to your advantage. Luckily we're dealing with something that's round and we can turn it to better suit how we want to work on our subject here. So we can see that at the bottom here we have a whole bunch of clay lube that I've put in the barrel of the wheel, just in the rim, so that I'm not having to constantly re-lubricate. And at this point what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the entire wheel. And you can see that most of it stayed there. The position of the wheel changed, but we're using gravity to our advantage to keep the clay lube in there. So all we need to do now, dip our clay into there and work around the spokes. Work around the outside, work around the spokes, whatever you want. This is a good way to conserve your liquids because, as we know, detailing can be pretty expensive, especially if you're always blowing through all the chemicals and compounds that you're using. So I just finished decontaminating all the wheels, and I wanted to show you guys what the clay looks like when it's getting pretty done. I would not use this on anything else ever again. This is the color difference. It went from like a yellow color to like a dark green with black streaks in it. I'm gonna throw this away now. So these wheels are now completely clayed. They're pretty slick to the touch. This is a very important step. Make sure you don't skip this. What you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna wanna grab a microfiber, grab some alcohol. I use ISO. You can pick this up anywhere. Just 99% alcohol is what I use. And what you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna wanna just put some onto your microfiber, wipe down the entire surface of the wheel. You're going to want to do this just because of any leftover brake dust that may have been missed, anything that could have been left behind by Iron-X, or even with that last step, just claying it. It can leave some residue that will make it more difficult for the next step, which is the sealant. It may not stick to it properly. So you're going to want to just alcohol wipe the entire surface before you put on the coating. Make sure you do this. This is very important to make sure that the coating lasts and that it sticks to the surface. Kind of difficult with one hand, but pour some alcohol in the microfiber and just wipe around on all of the edges. Just everything. This is also a good way to catch anything that you may have missed. Things that are like around, things that are here maybe in the corners that are a bit hard to reach. The alcohol should take out anything that's left behind. So on the fronts of these are some pretty good examples of things that are left behind from the initial wash process. Around here, this dirt in the bottom here is from brake dust that has kind of settled in, but it's not quite caked on yet. It's not quite etched into the fact that it's impossible to remove. I believe if we just wipe at it a bit, like so, most of it comes off. It actually cleans up pretty well. To coat these wheels, I'm going to be using Quartz Deluxe. This is specific for plastic and wheels, and it should have a higher temperature resistance than the normal Quartz ceramic coating that you use on your paint. You're going to want to be using something that can withstand heavy heat. Carnauba unfortunately has a very low melting point, so you can't just use carnauba wax on wheels because it gets really hot down there next to your rotors and your brake pads. Double and triple check on your wheels here just to make sure that you didn't miss any spots. And we're going to be getting to the coating. Inside you're going to find a rubber and foam applicator block. You're going to be finding some micro suedes as well as the product itself, which is here. I have done a few sets of wheels with these already. Both my BMW wheels have been coated with this. To use this, it's actually not that difficult. What you're going to want to be doing is you're going to shake this first. Grab one of these micro suedes, put the rest back in the box. Wrap the micro suede around the applicator like so, with the foam side down, the soft foam side down. Wrap it around, and then you're going to want to open your jar. I'm not going to be applying with this hand, so I'm not going to wear a glove on this side. This is but you should if you're going to be applying it. Alright, so we're just going to create a couple lines here. 1, 2, 3 lines. It's good enough for now. We're going to put the cap back on the ceramic coating bottle and set it aside. We don't want to keep it out for too long because it will dry up and you're going to be wasting some product. So now that that's done, our wheels are all decontaminated, ready to go. We've got our protection on. All we're going to do is just wipe across the surface a couple times. Make sure we have even application. Then after that's done, depending on the temperature outside, you're going to be waiting a different amount of time. If it's hot outside, you could wipe it off a bit faster. But if it's cold outside or raining like it is today, then I'm going to be leaving it for about 2 minutes before I start wiping everything off. Make sure that you do full coverage on everything that you can. And if you can't, then you could take off the rubber applicator block and just apply it by grabbing the micro suede directly, or put a little bit of the ceramic coating onto a microfiber, just a regular microfiber towel, and just try to apply it that way. I have done that in the past before, especially when you run out of these, because you will run out of them before you're finished with the bottle. Just like regular waxes and sealants, a little goes a long way. You really don't want to be using a whole lot of this stuff. After you've waited the right amount of time, grab a new microfiber and just buff it off like a regular wax. Now at this point, it's really up to you. You can decide to put more coats on if you want. The only thing is, ceramic coating does not stick to ceramic coating. The only reason that you would be applying another coat is if you had missed any spots on the first pass. I'm pretty confident I didn't miss anything on the front side, so I'm not going to be applying another coat. I'm just going to buff everything off, and we're going to go through the same process on the back. The barrel is a little bit easier, and it's trickier actually. It's easier and trickier. Unfortunately, just because it is dirtier on the back, you're going to be running into a few more little bumps in the wheels or embedded in dirt that you couldn't quite get off. But on the plus side, the wheel on the back is very, very smooth, so application is much easier than trying to work around these spokes on the front. So just a few thoughts while I'm waiting for the last couple of wheels to finish hazing up so I could buff them off. Coating your wheels is definitely much easier if you do it when they're new. That way you just have to do a alcohol wipe, a clay if you want, and then you could apply the coating right away. Don't be driving on the wheels for a couple seasons first and then be like, oh, I want to coat it now. Because the problem with that is you're going to have to be going through the decontamination process. And unfortunately, even though you may only drive on the wheels for a year or less, if it's a summer car, they're still going to get some brake dust and other things that get baked into the wheel. It gets etched in, and sometimes they just can't come out through regular cleaning. Through these wheels, I know that my friend doesn't really care too much about the back end of it, so I tried my best to get off as much as I could, but there's still some parts that could not be solved just by using chemicals or cleaning. You really have to either sand it or get them refinished just to pull everything out entirely. However, the front end of the wheels do look quite nice just because they're not that close to the brake components, and I think it's going to do pretty well. One final thought is that if you're going to do this, make sure that you do it with about 24 hours before you go drive on the wheels again. I know he doesn't need to use these wheels probably until tomorrow night, so I think that we'll be okay for this. The reason being is that ceramic coating, when it's still curing, it still needs about 24 hours. And while it's still curing, if it gets wet and the water dries on it, what will happen is it'll create a water spot there. You do not want that, because if you have a very nice finish, a water spot will look really ugly, and you're not gonna have a good time with it. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video on how to decontaminate and coat your wheels. Like the video if you liked it, dislike it if you didn't. Let me know what you like or what you want to see next from me. And that's it. Talk to you soon. Take care.